Jack Eichel returns to Buffalo, and VGK is hoping to extend its win streak to 9 to match the jersey number of Jack Eichel. It is a crossover edition today with Joe DiBiase of Locked Sabres.
Your Locked On Golden Knights, your daily podcast on the Vegas Golden Knights, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Thanks for making us your first listen each and every day. And both Locked On VGK and Locked On Sabres, free and available wherever you get your podcast. Find us on Twitter at Locked On VGK, at Tony Dasco, at TD Chris G. He is at Sneaky Joe Sports. And please subscribe to our YouTube channels. Welcome again, Joe. It's great to see you and hear you once again. It's today, I think that a lot of the fans have been pointing to, both in Buffalo and here in Las Vegas. And the way that we'll break things down on this show today, first, we will ask you, Joe, about the Sabres. Second segment, you can ask us questions about the VGK. Third, keys and thoughts to tonight's game. So first of all, the big elephant or Sabre in the room. We've got Jack Eichel's return to Buffalo tonight. Will the crowd reaction be much better than we saw in the first meeting on March the 10th of this past year? What will the crowd reaction be like for Jack Eichel? Will they let him hear it? Will it be a hostile environment tonight once again?
Yeah, for any of those watching on YouTube, Chris is nodding his head, and I think he's got the right attitude on this one. I don't think it's going to be much more positive of a reception than it was last year. I actually thought that we could have gone forward and it would have kind of tamed down, but I think when Jack Eichel in post-game after last year's game took a little bit of a shot at the fans, I think that fired things back up, maybe turned it up to 11. So I don't know that it's going to be like this going forward every time the Sabres play the Golden Knights, but yeah, tonight's game, Thursday night's game, I would expect that every time he touches the puck, you're going to hear boos. That if his name gets mentioned in pregame introductions on the away team, you're going to hear boos. Every time he gets hit, you're going to hear a raucous ovation. I would say it's going to be very similar to last year, if not even more so, because unlike last year when the Sabres were having a lot of problems filling up their building, and that's not all on them. A lot of it's on them because they've had an 11-year playoff drought here. But part of it is 20% or even more. There's rough estimates on like what their season ticket base is from Southern Ontario. And last year the border was still closed, or there were a lot of there's a lot of stuff going on there. So now that it's fully open, I would expect a pretty close to full crowd, if not right at a sellout. So I think the percentage of negative response will be the same, but you might hear it from more people tonight. So I would say yes.
Yeah, no, that's definitely fair, and quality of Spinal Tap reference going up to 11 earlier, by the way. Awesome. Yes. So the interesting thing, and forgive me my voice, folks, we're going to battle through this one. We'll get through it, I promise. Jack Eichel in Vegas, for lack of a better term, has been a model citizen. The most controversial thing he's done was actually after that game last year in Buffalo, taking the shot at the fan base about the amount of people in the seats and stuff like that. My question is, does that surprise you that he's kind of taken on a new direction?
I don't really. You mean in terms of like him being like a model citizen and whatnot?
Yeah, I mean, just great team player. He's very loved and adored here. It's something that he hasn't had a lot of.
Yeah, it depends what you believe from his time here in Buffalo, because I never really have subscribed to the idea that he was this bad locker room teammate or this locker room cancer. I always thought that was blown way out of proportion, and that a lot of fans just wanted to find a reason for why it didn't work with him here. And I think the reasons why it didn't work go well beyond things like that. I would see with my own eyes, he's sitting there with Victor Olofsson in his first game in the NHL with the iPad showing him where to be on the power play. You know, he's the first guy that's hugging Dylan Cousins when he's skating off the ice for his first NHL goal. Kyle Okposo, who is now the captain of the Sabres, at every turn has defended Eichel and his job as a leader and his job in the locker room. I don't think he was, he wasn't Jonathan Toews or Mark Messier as a captain. They put the C on him probably way too early. He was like 20 years old when they did it. So I don't want to say that he was like, leading the charge at every moment, but I don't really ever think he was that bad. And he was very involved in the community, his work with Roswell Park, the Cancer Institute here in Buffalo. So I always thought that stuff got blown way out of proportion. So for me personally, it's not that surprising that he's acting that way in Las Vegas, and that now that he's involved with a winning culture, that all that noise has kind of gone away. Again, that's not for me to say that he was perfect when he was here with some of that stuff, but I think the problems in Buffalo were well beyond, him and his character and whatnot.
Joe DiBiase is our guest. Again, we're on our crossover with Locked On Sabres. And Joe, of course, a popular radio host on WGR in Buffalo as well. And Alex Tuch and Peyton Krebs, two players that were sent to Buffalo in exchange for Eichel. Can you bring us up to date on how they're fitting in there in Buffalo with the Sabres?
Yeah. So starting with Alex Tuch, I think Alex Tuch has been a dream in an era or in a period of Sabres hockey here where their GM, Kevin Adams, gets up at the podium multiple times and says, we want guys that want to be here. And, that's a hard starting point when you're on an 11-year playoff drought and you can't fill up your building. And it just feels like a dark, depressing place in the NHL. Here comes Alex Tuch, who he's not quite like from their backyard. Like Syracuse, New York is, it's a couple hour drive down the road, so it's not that far, but grew up a Sabre fan, grew up next door to former Sabre Tim Connolly. And he's just been exactly what the Sabres have wanted of a guy that wants to be a Buffalo Sabre. But that's only so good if you're actually a good player, right? Like you could want to be a Buffalo Sabre, but you score 2 goals in the entire season and who cares? Tuch has been great. He's about 0.8 points per game so far, 44 points in 54 games for the Sabres after coming back from that injury that you guys know he had last year. He's been great. He's been playing on the top line. He's really sparked Tage Thompson, I think, in the last 12 months.
He's on a tear. He is on a tear right now. Oh my goodness.
Thompson's been unbelievable. Tuch's a big part of that though, because Thompson's not your traditional number one center where you'd think of, he's driving play and he's playmaking and he's carrying the puck. Thompson does do some of that, but his number one attribute is scoring and his shot. And Tuch has kind of taken on the responsibility of, okay, I can carry the puck more. I could play make. I could skate through the neutral zone with speed and set things up. So I think Tuch has been fabulous. He's been just what the Sabres have wanted out of him. And then on the other side of the trade, Peyton Krebs, there have been moments, there have been flashes. The consistency is not there yet. He's still young. So we've learned with Tage Thompson not to write off a prospect, because that guy was at ground zero and then boom, he's suddenly a 40 goal scorer. But I think Krebs, there are things to build on with him. He's playing in the bottom 6. So you'd like to see more from him at some point, but I don't think there's a lot of pressure on him yet to be like, you got to play 20 minutes a night and be a 50-point guy. So Tuch's been a dream. Krebs has been pretty good. And then, the picks that they got, I'll let you know in 3 years.
Fair enough. I've always said Alex Tuch, in my opinion, is one of, if not the hardest player in the league to stop when he has a full head of steam going across the neutral zone. It's just amazing to watch. He has so many coast to coast goals, and to your credit, he was also a model citizen here in Las Vegas, very loved, a lot of appearances, things like that. Little fun fact about, not so fun fact about Peyton Krebs. Do you know how he logged his first NHL shot on goal?
I do not know this. No.
He took a puck off the jaw, broke his jaw, and went to hit the goalie.
Really? That's how that happened? I remember he had the jaw injury. Wow.
Yeah, no, I was really high on Krebs. The story about him kind of falling on the draft board with the Achilles injury that happened like weeks before the draft, that was just absolutely terrible. And I think Krebs will develop, and he'll certainly fit in nicely with the stable of talent that Buffalo has. So on that, you mentioned stuff about the season ticket base and stuff like that. How is the attendance going right now? Are they trending the right direction? Is it a much different environment year over year? And can we credit Alex Tuch with a lot of that? I guess
you could give him a little bit. I'm sure.
Okay.
It's a hard question to answer, because I think what you hear from the team once in a while, even not like in public, but even behind the scenes a little bit, is it's going to take years for them to rebuild their season ticket base. It's not all about the border being closed and whatnot. That was a part of it, because again, that's like over 20% of their.
So why? Let me cut you off. I'm so sorry, but why is the season ticket base low in general? Is it because of the performance on the ice, or what do you attribute that to?
No, really, that's it. Like at some point, fans just, I mean, they had been loyal, right? Like, year 5 of not making the playoffs, year 6, year 7, year 8, like they were still there. They were still filling up the arena. They were still optimistic about the team and hopeful. And then just, the pandemic hit. And I think that was a marking point of like, we can't do this anymore. Like fans spending thousands of dollars a year on a product that you haven't seen, pay out for you, make its money worth in over a decade. At some point, I think fans just, they kind of lost hope on it. Now, I think they're building that back up. I think the season ticket base is incrementally going back up. But, when you lose that percentage of your season ticket base, it takes years to recover from it. So it's going in the right direction. You're seeing games where the building is half empty. On Tuesday night against Arizona, that was the case. But last year, you saw very few games where the building was full. And already you saw the opener. It was a packed house. They played a Saturday game against Florida where it was that. I would imagine tonight against the Golden Knights, it's going to be the same way. So it's going in the right direction. But I would think this is at least a year, 2 years. And they need to really put a good team on the ice. I think before we're talking about, they're selling out the building every night like they used to.
Joe DiBiase is our guest, Locked On Sabres. You saw a lot of Bruce Cassidy back there in Buffalo, of course. Is this one of his better coaching jobs? I'd like to get your perspective if we can.
Yeah.
Did you see this coming out of the Vegas Golden Knights, and especially this early in the season?
I did. I love Bruce Cassidy. I always loved him as the Bruins head coach. He's a very it's a work environment or a job that you don't see a lot of creative thought. Like it's kind of the old thing, right? Like a young player plays bad, I'm going to stick him on the bench and put him up in the press box, or big player comes through the doors. Like this happened with Tage Thompson here at Buffalo. Don Granato, I think, has a lot of the same traits Cassidy does, where he's 6'7", and every coach has tried to make him a power forward, but he plays like he's 5'10". And you know what? I'm going to let him play that way. And I feel like Cassidy he's proven to be very data driven in the past, very based on information and whatnot, and not set in his ways. So from what I saw in Boston, I always liked the job he did and liked the way he approaches the job itself. So no, I wasn't really that surprised at the success he's having in Vegas. The only thing I thought might hold him back is their goaltending situation would hold up. And we can get to that when we talk about the Golden Knights more. But no, I've always liked Cassidy, and I'm not stunned at all that it's going as well as it is in Vegas.
We had a big problem under the DeBoer era with no identity, and just kind of strange in the post-game pressers.
And no accountability, right?
Yeah, exactly.
No accountability either.
Yeah, exactly. So what I'm asking now, Joe, is, pardon me, I'm fighting through this. We'll get through it, folks. We'll get through it. I promise.
I think you're doing great. Yeah.
Talk to me about the identity of the Bruins teams under Cassidy. What did you, the Boston Bruins are coming to Buffalo tonight. What did you expect as a fan, as a reporter, as everything?
Yeah. I think, I'm trying to not get stuck in the way they used to be, which was, and like there was a little of this, but 10 years ago, like the last time, honestly, the Sabres were good, the Bruins were the team. They just couldn't get over the hump. Like they consumed the Sabres and Sabres fans, and like the organization too. They made moves to get tougher because the Bruins would just bully them. And that's like Lucic, and that's Chara in his heyday, and Marchand just coming on. So like they would bully you, and they still did that under Cassidy. But Cassidy, I felt like his team's identity was they were going to boat race you. They were going to outskate you up and down the ice. They were going to unleash that Marchand, Pasternak, and Bergeron line, and they were just going to control play. They were going to be willing to take chances while still maintaining that, hey, we're the Boston Bruins, and you're not going to push us around. So I feel like he balanced that very well with the city he was in, the team that he had, while also being willing to say, okay, I do want to open things up. I do want to score and go up and down the ice. So I think it was a balance there. I don't know if he's going to maintain that, we don't get pushed around stuff in Vegas. I think he probably will. But the first thing I think of is just he was willing on a team that had been fit about physicality for so long to be like, yeah, we have better players than you, so we're just going to outscore you.
Coming up next, we'll be talking about, we'll get questions from Joe DiBiase of Locked On Sabres. He'll be asking us about VGK. Stay with us. It's a big day in Buffalo and for the Vegas Golden Knights as the win streak's at 8. They try to extend it to 9 to match the jersey number of Jack Eichel. So corny. Back with more after this on Locked On Golden Knights.
You love that, Tony, don't you?
Our next partner has a product that we absolutely use every day. It's Athletic Greens, and we utilize it because we don't have the time, especially here in Vegas. Chris with his family, me with my bachelor pad, well, whatever. We need a lot more energy. I don't know where that came from, but just stay with it. Now, I've been using Athletic Greens for about the last 6 months, and I absolutely love it. It doesn't taste like it's super healthy. It has kind of a mild tropical taste. I actually look forward to taking each and every day. So what is this stuff? With one delicious scoop of Athletic Greens, you are absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, adaptogens, probiotics, all that. Special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy recovery, focus, and aging, all those things. We send it to some friends. It is lifestyle friendly, and they use a lot of the best products based on the local science with constant product iterations and third-party testing. The importance of it, they have multiple vitamins in there, multivitamins. Tons of people take it each and every day, and it really is good. And it costs a lot less than $3 a day. You're investing in your health. It's cheaper than your cold brew habit. There's a lot of testimonials about it. Just Google it, as they say, right? And to make things easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs on your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NHL network. Again, athleticgreens.com/NHL network. Take ownership of your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. Welcome back to Locked On Golden Knights. Tony Cardasco, Chris Golick in Las Vegas and in Buffalo joining us today, and we really appreciate it. From Locked On Sabres, we have our good friend Joe DiBiase. And Joe, fire away with questions that you might have for us about the Vegas Golden Knights.
I mean, I've got to start with Jack, right? I got to start with Jack Eichel. Sabre fans are still very interested in what he's doing over in Las Vegas, trying to evaluate the trade a little bit. I kind of want to start with the trade itself. Does it feel like the Golden Knights and do Vegas fans feel like they're getting everything that they wanted out of that trade? And also, maybe thinking about, the return, because giving up Alex Tuch was not nothing, but how do they feel about the trade itself at this stage?
I think Tuch was a cornerstone of the Vegas Golden Knights since joining the team a couple games into our first season in 17-18. So that's the first thing I would start with. And I mentioned earlier, Alex Tuch, in my opinion, is one of the hardest players in the NHL to stop or slow down when he has a full head of steam coming through the neutral zone. He was probably the only player that we had that really could turn a game on end. But not nearly to the level of Jack Eichel. I think the most important thing with Eichel is he can single-handedly take a game and say, I'm going to win this game for you guys, or I'm going to get the big goal to tie it up, or I'm going to just find a way to lead, just follow me, boys. I got you this game. And that's something that the Vegas Golden Knights have never had going back to season 1. Like I said, Alex Tuch was kind of developing to that, and he did a remarkable job, especially in the playoffs multiple times, but not on a consistent basis. So, Jack Eichel, he's definitely the difference maker. You saw it in the overtime game the other day against Winnipeg, just that goal with 4 or 5 seconds left. He has this thing, right? I'm sure you can jump in anytime here, but he goes behind the net, then he goes back to the blue line, then he goes back down the boards, then he goes behind the net, then he goes to the blue line, and then he makes a great pass or gets a great shot attempt. And he does that multiple times every game. And me and Tony have alluded to, we were concerned, and I think that concern is gone now, but we were concerned about other players being able to keep up with him and being able to accept that pass. And that was a concern when we let Max Pacioretty go for future considerations. We can talk about that in another show. But he was our best finisher we had ever had. And, those two together would have been a dynamic duo, but Chandler Stevenson and Mark Stone are doing just fine with him.
And you know what else, Joe, too? He's really improving surprisingly. I mean, some people might think that he's, reached his peak, but especially on the defensive end. And Bruce Cassidy talked about it the other day with his first and second steps and getting the puck out of the zone and starting the break. He's very much improved there in that area. And when we talk about this trade as well, remember, Chris, you recall that VGK, the last piece to this trade was Peyton Krebs, and VGK did not want to part with Peyton Krebs.
That was
they finally decided to do it.
That was the hiccup for 3 months.
Yeah. And it went on for a while. Yep, for sure.
Yeah. I always wonder about the timing of that, because if you remember back, Eichel went on ESPN that day of the trade, and he said, I think he told the Sabres a day before, 2 days before, that he was going on there. And that was probably something surgery related at the time, I'm sure, like just to kind of air his grievances about
campaigning a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. On that front, neck wise, it sounds like there's been no hiccups since the surgery.
No,
nothing.
No, I mean, I remember actually Tony and the one of the podcasts we listened to over the summer where McPhee went on up north with some of the Canadian people.
Those are the only people he speaks to. He never speaks to.
No, that's fair also. That's okay. Fair also. Maybe he'll talk to me one of these days. He has talked to me, but off the record. But anyway, moving forward from that, there was concern, right? The first couple of games, he took a couple of good licks in his first couple of games back, and McPhee was concerned. But really, after 2 or 3 games, it was really business as usual as far as his health goes. And unfortunately, dude broke his thumb like 6 or 7 games in, and he didn't miss a game. I mean, like in my everyday living, you can see my desk over here. I open packs of hockey cards and sports cards for people, and I send them out. And imagine not having your thumbs to do something like that. Yeah. Now imagine not having a good thumb to shoot a 90-mile-an-hour wrist shot or a slap shot or win a face-off. I mean, it's just absolutely remarkable.
Yeah. So how is he fitting in? Like, what is the utilization like? Because I'll look at the numbers, and I'm not watching them every night, and I'll see, oh, wow, he's playing less than 19 minutes a night, which I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying it's different because
he's been efficient. Joe, he's been absolutely efficient. He scored 1 goal on 2 shots in Toronto, and his second shot was a high danger shot. He's become more of a complete, I think, and team player under Bruce Cassidy. Chris, anything else to add?
No, I mean, I definitely agree with that. And no disrespect on the Buffalo side, but there is a different level of talent around Jack Eichel also. I mean, there's really 2 very strong lines that can score goals. And then obviously our line 4 is doing wonderful things, and line 3 is kind of there. So he has a lot less pressure on him, which I think is helping him. And, we're talking a little bit about kind of his attitude and stuff. And, he actually has a fun side that I didn't see. Tony, I'll go back to the baseball game over the summer, the softball game where Ryan Reeves landed in a walking boot after the game, but he did a cartwheel after he hit a home run. Like, that's not a Jack Eichel thing. He just did a cartwheel coming in. When one of the days I'm going to ask him if he's ever going to do that when I get my credentials for the games next week. I'm going to ask him if he's ever going to do that on T-Mobile Ice. What do you think? Will that get us invited back, Tony?
There was a hula hoop gif that used to float around Sabres Twitter for years and years that I haven't seen in a while, but there was that side to him for sure. That's a good point, because I thought about that when you said that earlier about, like, he's not really being asked to, like, you've got to, or he can, you said he can like put the team on his back and carry them. In Buffalo, he had to put the team on his back and carry them, or like they weren't going to win. And it feels like Vegas is the right setup where, if he has an off game, it's not, it's an automatic loss, which is kind of how it used to be here.
Was he ever used in the PK in Buffalo? Because he's been getting a lot of PK time here.
At the end, I think the last year or two he was in Buffalo, he started to, because you think about it, his reach, right? Like his stick, he uses a longer stick.
He's got the longest stick in the NHL. Let's face it.
Right. So even in that, he doesn't need to be diving to block shots to make an impact. He could stand where other guys stand and be bothering the guy with the puck more than anybody else does. So no, he started to do that a little bit towards the end. What about the goaltending situation? Because that was one thing that like Sabre fans that would like hate watch the Golden Knights a little bit at the end of last season. And then they see Robin Lehner's out for the year. And it's, well, isn't that what kind of got them beat at the end of last season was the goaltending? So how have they maintained that position, and how does that look going through the rest of the year?
Let me start off with Robin Lehner. Of course, right now he's had 1 hip surgery. He's awaiting his 2nd hip surgery, had knee surgery and a shoulder surgery. Chris and I both agree that we don't think he'll ever play for VGK again. I don't know how he's going to come back from all those injuries. And then, Logan Thompson has just been spectacular in net. And part of the reason why Thompson and Aiden Hill, the backup goaltender right now, they're doing so well is because of the defense in front of them. Bruce Cassidy has really done a great job, and John Stevens, special teams coach, and the more or less defensive coordinator, if you will, they've done a great job in clogging up the middle, playing the defensive structure very well, and making sure that opponents don't have players just standing there in front of the net. That was part of the big problem that they had last season. There were a ton of deflections in front of the net on goals and things. And Logan Thompson is very athletic. He just comes up with a lot of big saves. Marc-Andre Fleury took him under his wing when he was here in Vegas, and it's made him a much better goaltender. But there is, it's not a VGK season unless there's a hiccup or some controversy or something. And now they have a third goalie, Laurent Brossoit. We call him Brossoit here in Vegas because he is a bro. And, he was down in Henderson for conditioning. Now he's back up with the parent club. He's on IR. Cassidy doesn't want to play with a 3-goalie system. We don't know where this is going to be going. They have too many goalies right now. Aiden Hill, I think, is a huge surprise for Chris and I. He just got shelled in the preseason. Chris, your thoughts too?
No, I mean, like you said, Tony, there is a goaltending drama situation building right now. And I also cover the AHL Henderson Silver Knights out here, Joe. And I was at Brossoit's, both of his starts over the weekend, and he played on Saturday night. It was a fine game. I mean, a lot of odd man rushes, 4 goals given up. You can't really put any of the goals on him. It was just a good, get back on the ice type of start. So fast forward to Tuesday night, the Silver Knights at the time were 2-8, welcoming the 3-7 San Diego Gulls. The final score of that game, 7-0 San Diego. Brossoit was unfortunately pulled after the first period, and I thought that was kind of strange. I asked Coach Vivros, that's our AHL coach, about why he got pulled. He felt he was just getting shelled and thrown to the wolves, and nothing positive could have come of keeping him out there. But his conditioning, pardon me, folks, his conditioning stint is over now. So now he has been called back up to the Golden Knights, but he still remains on IR. I don't know how this nonsense works. Tony will definitely get going anytime here about the salary cap and the salary cap roulettes, not gymnastics. This is Vegas. So we do salary cap roulette out here where we juggle things. And there's, believe it or not, a path where Logan Thompson might go down to the AHL from time to time to clear the path for Brossoit to get some starts. It would only be on paper. He's not going to play any games, but still, I just can't imagine this fan base flipping out when they see Logan Thompson sent to the AHL.
Right. When he might not even actually, like this would happen here, where a guy gets sent down to the minors and he doesn't even really leave the building. Like he just stays in the building.
Well, they got to tweet it out and put it out there that it happened and stuff.
Yeah.
And...
yeah. So that was my final question, is about, like, one, are there any other holes on this team? And two, if there are, like, they have zero cap space, at least a cap friendly.
They got like $17.
$17 to spend. Yeah. And do you guys, Buffalo's got a ton of cap space, correct?
They are sometimes struggling to reach the cap floor, honestly. I mean,
that's going to do. Are they just waiting for the trade deadline, add more pieces? What do you think their plan is?
Patrick Kane, let's go. Patrick Kane.
I think don't rule that out after the year. They would never. I don't think they would give up an asset for him.
Rangers and then Sabres. Rangers then Sabres.
Something like that. Yeah, go somewhere where you can win a cup right now, and then after the season, maybe the Sabres will be in on that. I could see them being in on it, but not in the trade. It's something like that. I think they would just hope that their young guys earn bigger contracts. I mean, they have the youngest team in hockey right now by a wide margin, and that is with Craig Anderson on the roster, who's like 50 years old. I'm not even exaggerating by that much. And I think they're just hoping that a lot of these entry-level contracts develop into bigger deals. Dahlin's going to need a new contract after next year. Owen Power will need a contract at some point. So I think they'd like that to happen organically. But in the meantime, yeah, like they're trading for Ben Bishop, who's retired, so they can get that cap hit on their books. They did that last year with Johnny Boychuk, who hasn't played in the league in like 5 years. But this is something the Coyotes do, right? Like the Coyotes trade for Chris Pronger 6 years after he retired. So I think in the short term, they're doing that, which means No, I don't think there's any bad blood between these organizations. If Vegas needs some cap space and they want to throw a mid-round pick the Sabres' way at some point this year, the Sabres would be open to that. But that was my question is, are there even any holes? Because if there are, like, I don't know, can they do anything to address them mid-season?
There's a nice Owen Power clear-cut rookie card we pulled last night, actually.
Love that.
Pretty
cool
card. Oh, yeah.
Send it to Joe.
I'm sorry, I got to get this out, get a little shameless plug for myself there. Line 3, I think, is possibly a hole because the offensive output is not there yet. Phil Kessel started on line 1 with Stevenson. I'm sorry, Phil Kessel started line 1. It was Eichel, March or so, right? Tony, correct me. Riley Smith.
Oh, Riley.
It was Riley Smith.
Kessel, which I didn't like. I didn't agree with you there. Anyway,
right. No, I thought that would work out, and it kind of did, and it kind of didn't. And then they tossed Kessel back down to line 3, which is a fine spot for him. Line 3 is kind of the hole, but that's not unique to the Vegas Golden Knights. That's a trouble spot for almost every team in the league because of the salary situation. But outside of that, I mean, it's, the gravy train with the biscuit wheels right now. And at some point there will be some adversity. There is every year for every single team. And, Cassidy does have some skeletons in the closet that could come out at some point involving younger players, if LT and some of our younger, defensemen kind of slow down a little bit. So that's kind of what we're not waiting for it to happen, but it could happen.
And Paul Cotter hasn't played since the early part of this season, so he doesn't really like to play the young players if they're struggling, and he doesn't give them too many chances. We'll return with more. Joe DiBiase is with us. Tony Cardasco, Chris Golick from Las Vegas. Back with more on Locked On Golden Knights after this. Thank you for making Locked On Golden Knights and Locked On Sabres your first listens each and every day. For your next listen, make sure that you check out Locked On Sports Today, the podcast, biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. It's available on the Odyssey app, on YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. So, yeah, we have Shea Weber getting these phantom assists here in Vegas, too. So we've got our own ghost in the closet, to pick up on what you were saying there, Joe. But let's get into some keys to the game tonight. And for me, I think the top key would have to be special teams. We know that Buffalo is on a run of 7 straight games, is it, where they've scored a power play goal?
Yes.
And VGK had a shorthanded goal after they worked on the penalty kill extensively in practice earlier this week. So against Toronto, they had that breakout, the shorthanded goal by Riley Smith. But give us some of your keys, guys.
Well, my number one key for this game would absolutely be prevent odd man rushes. The Sabres want to play an up and down the ice style. They want to utilize their offensive skill. That's the system Don Granato wants to play. And they've done fairly well at it. Like, they've played top teams recently where, like, Carolina and Tampa, those end up being losses, but they are right there with Carolina and Tampa in terms of scoring chances. In fact, those are 2 losses where I was trying to kind of almost ease fans of, don't feel too bad after this game. They had more scoring chances than both of those teams. They just didn't, one bounce goes against them and they end up losing games that it feels like they should lose, but they're right there. But both of those games, and also the game against Pittsburgh where the Sabres come back and win, they're going up and down the ice. They're trading blows with these teams, these highly skilled teams, but they're giving up odd man rushes. I mean, it's not entirely their fault. They were missing 3 of their top 5 defensemen. Now they are missing 2 of their top 4. They got Ilya Lyubushkin back, but they're missing Matthias Samuelsson as a top pair guy. They're missing Henry Jokiharju as a second pair guy. So not all of it's their fault, but those games, their Achilles heel was, oh, they got a chance, but now it's a 2-on-1 going back the other way. Oh, they got a chance, but now there's a breakaway going back the other way. And against teams like that, I can get you killed. And I think against a team like Vegas, that's going to get you killed if you give them odd man rushes all night. So for me, it would be go for it, be a risk taker, but do not just have multiple 2-on-1s coming back against Eric Comrie or Anderson, whoever starts.
That's been I love the story of Craig Anderson letting his kid design his pads, I believe.
Yes.
I thought that was absolutely an awesome story. I love Craig Anderson, everything he's done for the game. You're 100% right about the odd man rushes, because that is a big area of strength, if you will, for the VGK, those breakout passes. They are making a very good first pass. Tony mentioned the first and second steps for the forwards once they get that full head of steam going. But on this road trip, we have also not necessarily played a very good defensive scheme. We've given up a lot more goals on this road trip versus any of the home games we've been having. And I wonder if part of that is to matchups and things like that. And we'll kind of see how tonight shakes out. It could be a track meet. My keys for the game, it's not necessarily the hockey side of things. I think both teams need to stay in their lane. I think both teams need to not make this about Jack Eichel, starting with the Vegas Golden Knights. I got to think the Sabres, some of the guys might want to give it to him a little bit and maybe in a playful manner, but they definitely know if they can get a hit on Eichel, it'll get the crowd going and stuff like that. But I think both teams need to stay in their lane, get through the first couple of shifts where the crowd's going to be booing and stuff like that, obviously, and just focus on both sides focusing on winning a hockey game.
Yeah, Joe, I think that the NHL's rigged. Absolutely. VGK playing, a team that's in third place, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth place teams. They're going to play against St. Louis last place team. I think it's rigged. Do you agree or not?
I don't think it's rigged because if it was, here's why.
They've played three teams on back-to-backs coming from.
You're going to get us blitzed on Twitter and YouTube.
I love it,
Tony,
of course.
Tony, here's why the NHL's not rigged. Connor McDavid's an Oiler. If the NHL was rigged, that guy would be in New York City or Philadelphia. Like, they would not have sent him up to Edmonton. So that could just be the lottery, but I think McDavid being at Edmonton, I can never be on board with an NHL's rig take again.
And here with Alex Tuck, when he was in Vegas, we would call it Tuck luck when things weren't going very well. Yeah. Tage Thompson, Jeff Skinner, will they be on the same line tonight?
They should be. Those two usually stay the same. They've done a little bit of moving around with Tuck actually being on different lines. He was with Dylan Cousins recently. Cousins actually did play. I should clarify. It's usually Thompson and Skinner together. Their last game, though, Don Granato did put Cousins up between Tuck and Skinner and then Thompson down with a different line. So I have not seen morning skate yet for the Sabres. I would imagine he sticks to what he had last game, which actually might mean that Thompson and Skinner are apart, but that's a very new phenomenon because those two have been together for over a year on the same line. So
are you going to have another big poll for us today on your Twitter handle?
Did you see that one?
You must have gotten like 10,000 people like voting. What was that one again?
Tony looks like he didn't see it. I was just trying to gauge.
See it. No, I saw it.
Or not Tony, Chris.
Chris is
looking like he didn't
see
it.
You were trying to gauge.
I was trying to gauge.
Right?
Yeah, like how much negative energy is still in the fan base about this. So my Twitter poll was, this season, the Sabres make the playoffs, but Jack Eichel and the Golden Knights win the Stanley Cup.
I like it. I love it already. Keep going.
My
keep
question
talking.
was, are you signing up? And, obviously I'm going to have like a 99% of Sabre fans as my followers here. So are you signing up for that? And yes, did win, but it was only 55%. 45% of people out there are saying, no, I don't want the longest playoff drought in NHL history to end because I don't want to see Eichel win the cup that badly. There's a lot of negative energy. And
how
for
many
me, that was
voted? How many people
nuts.
voted though? I saw like a huge number there.
Like 3,000 voted. So we're talking about
this is big time. I'm uncomfortable now.
1,200 Sabre fans.
We got like 40 votes, 50 votes.
Well, Joe, thanks again for joining us. We appreciate your time.
Thanks for carrying me, boys. We got through it.
It's been a lot of fun, and I know you'll be there. I hope that they don't, cheer or root up in the press box like the media does here.
I know you don't, Tony. You
might be booing. Okay.
Let me throw one last little thing here in at the end. I do wonder. I'm very interested to see how much Eichel will play into it. He didn't really do it on the ice last year. And the only reason I say that I wonder if he will is when they used to play the Maple Leafs. And the thing about Toronto is they'll come in and they'll fill up the Sabres arena, even when they're good, because they spend $1 billion on tickets. And Sabre fans you're basically paying for my season tickets. I'll give you one game. Leafs fans would come in, they'd fill the place up, and Eichel would always go after him. And when I mean go after him, I mean he'd score a goal, he'd skate up to Leaf fans in the first row, and he'd tell them to sit down. He would do stuff like that. So I'm just a little curious. I'm not saying that he shouldn't do that. I think actually I'd like to see them play up the rivalry a little bit. Be the supervillain. Lean into it.
It would be a lot of fun.
Take us home, Tony. Take us home, quick.
All right. Thanks again to Joe DiBiase, Locked On Sabres, for Chris Golick, Tony Cardasco from